Hey, boss mama! Welcome back to the show. This is the space where we explore building a business you love, raising your family, and creating a life that works for you. I'm your host, Manushka Elephant, marketing coach and fellow mom entrepreneur. Today's episode is for every mompreneur who has ever felt stuck between chasing her dreams and juggling everything else life throws her way. Motherhood, leadership, business, and the mental load that never quits. So here's today's big question. How do you find the courage to leave security behind and take the leap into building your own business? Especially when you're already stretched to your limits as a mom? To help answer that, I'm joined by someone who's been in those exact shoes. Meet Shayna Bergman, a leadership and mindset coach who works with parents in executive and entrepreneurial roles. After years in the corporate world, Shayna made a bold pivot, launching her own coaching practice while raising her two young kids. She's someone who has mastered not just the logistics of entrepreneurship, but the emotional roller coaster of it too. In this conversation, we're diving deep into how Shayna knew it was time to quit her corporate career and the hard truths behind that decision, the mindset shift she had to make before launching her business, and the power of working through the inner critic that so many moms face when trying to balance leadership and family life. If you've ever felt paralyzed by fear or struggled to trust yourself enough to take the next big step, this episode will feel like the deep exhale you didn't know you needed. Hey, boss mama! Welcome to the show, empowering mompreneurs to thrive in business and motherhood. Let's get started. Hello, Shayna. Thank you for joining me on the Hey Boss Mama podcast. I'm really excited to have you here because I know you have a lot to share with our audience.
Thank you for having me too. I'm excited to be here.
I'm just really curious to know, how was your experience setting up your business, because you came from the corporate world where you had a big position, and during the pandemic, like I think many moms who were in this situation, you're like, wait, I can do all that work and do it for myself rather than for someone else. So tell us what happened.
So, yeah, like a lot of people during the pandemic, I think a lot of us had awakenings during that time. And for me, I was killing myself at work. I was working full time plus. I had my daughter in virtual kindergarten at home. I had my son in diapers. My husband was here too, and we were juggling all the things. And I found myself not only teaching my daughter kindergarten, changing diapers all day, leading big meetings. Then I was working until 3 and 4 in the morning, pretty much nightly, just to get my work done because I was obviously a little bit
Mm.
busy during the day. And there were several moments during that time when I said to myself, I am working so hard and somehow I'm doing okay, but I'm doing it for somebody else. And I've always had this other dream. I wonder what it would be like to work for myself. And that was like a constant narrative I heard in my head the whole time. And then I had this one conversation with somebody that I worked with who was unkind, is the nicest way I can put it. And I left that call, and it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But he said something to me in a certain way. And I said to myself, I don't need this. I don't need to be here dealing with people like this when I could be doing this for myself, helping people that speak to others that way. Because this was somebody who was a leader. And I said to myself, I know that he's stressed. I know we've got a lot going on, but that didn't need to happen that way. I would like to be on the other side, helping people that are influencing others all day long, leading others all day long, who are juggling all the things I'm juggling. And that's when I decided I've got to go into this other business that I knew I was meant for. I knew I was meant to be a coach the whole time. I just hadn't been able to pull the trigger just yet.
Wow, that's quite incredible. I love how you had the virtual kindergarten going on in the background and you still managed to do everything you had to do. But it did require a bit of sacrifice, right? But so when you decided to start your business, you had the aha moments, but then what happened? Because from having the idea to actually implementing and setting everything up, there's a huge jump.
Thank you for recognizing that, because I don't know that everybody realizes the courage I think that it takes to do
Mhm.
that. So for me, I had that sort of pivotal moment that I shared, and I knew I wanted to be a coach. And I had known this since I was a little kid that I wanted to help people in this way. Um, and for me, though, I didn't want to just call myself a coach and not have the training and the background and the certification. And so already I had this hurdle in front of me, which was I can't do it until I'm trained. And what does that mean? That means it's another time investment, which I have 2 little kids. That means it's a financial investment. Plus, I have a full-time job and I'm running my kids on a lot of different places and I have my own life too and I have a husband. Like there's a lot going on. But I decided if I'm going to do this, I have to get the education first. It was really important to me to do that, to make sure that I was serving my clients appropriately. I was going to weekend classes, night classes, studying on the side, practicing coaching with different clients. And this was on top of my regular job. But it was so important to me. Like my best friend said to me, she said, it's you've had this whisper for all these years and now it's become this really loud voice. And that's exactly what it was. I have to do this. So, because I wanted it and because it was really fun for me, I didn't find the extra work to be that hard actually, because it was like the thing I wanted to be doing all day
Mhm.
anyways. And I went through that program and I went through it with the sort of promise to myself that if I was going to invest the time and money, I was going to be leaving my corporate job. And that's a very hard mindset shift to make because what that meant was I was walking away from success, so they say, security financially, but not really, but that's what we think
Mhm.
is that it's secure. I was walking away from predictability. I was walking away from a regular paycheck. I was walking away from a lot of perks and benefits. I was walking away from amazing people, a team around me, somebody to call when something broke. There was a lot that I was leaving. But for me, I knew how much was possible on the other side. And so I hired a coach because I needed somebody who could be very objective with me and challenge me and ask me questions to make me think differently than how I was thinking. You know, we're human. Our brains are designed to keep us safe. They're designed to keep us from avoiding risk. And that's what my brain was doing too. And so I needed somebody to challenge that regularly to pull me out of this mindset of, but I can't, but it's too hard, but what if? So we played out all that stuff. We played out all the worst case scenarios. We played out all the what ifs
Yeah.
and we played out like the dream vision of what it could be. And it was through that, year plus long journey for me just to make the mindset shift. The tactical, like setting up the business and the bank account and
Mhm.
all, that wasn't even the hard part, although that's hard too. The hard part was shifting my mind from what I thought was a stable, secure way of operating into now I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm part of supporting my family. I have to make it work.
Yeah, that's really, really good the way that you explained that because I think so many moms, they're like, oh, like it seems so easy. Like, why not? I could do a business. And then they realize that it takes a lot more than just saying it. There's like a lot of work behind it. And so much of that work is in our own mindsets. And that's the difficult thing because, like, getting the bank account and the admin sorted, you just have to tick boxes and fill out forms, right? But when it comes to the resilience and the confidence, I think that's the hardest. It's really knowing that you have something to offer, trusting that you have clients that are waiting for that, but they need to get to know about it, and that you need to have that level of belief in yourself that other people are going to be like, yes, I believe too, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge piece because if I come into client conversations and I'm not confident,
Yeah.
they can tell, right? They could feel it. I have to come in knowing I can change your
Hmm.
life. And I know that. I'm aware and now that confidence is very clear, but I had to spend all that time over a year building that up, which is why for me the education was important. And I knew once I was learning the tools and the techniques and the skills, I could feel that confidence that I had a little bit already behind me, but I was starting to build it a little
Hmm.
differently. But yes, to your point, it's like I think in our minds sometimes we think, "Oh, it's no big deal." But then when we're asked to take the leap, to make the jump, all of a sudden it becomes really hard. And it is, it does take courage and bravery and faith and a trust in yourself and an inner knowing. And I say to people all the time, for me, I had to have no plan B. And it's funny, I don't coach that way. I don't typically coach with like just plan A. But for me, the way that I work, I knew I had to go in with, I will make this work no matter what. And I didn't really have to do it even with that much conviction because it's been really easy, to be honest, for me. It's been joyful and easy and fun. But before all of that, before I knew it was going to be that way, I had to go in saying, like, I'm all in. I am all in because I believe that this is going to work.
Yeah, and here it's really important to understand how we function because there are some things that will work for you and not necessarily for your clients. And from one client to another, I'm sure that it's also different. But also that although you wanted to become a coach, you also got to coach yourself because the role of the coach is not to know how to do everything. It's to be there to like accompany people in what they're trying to achieve, right? And personally, I've been working with a coach as well, and I can see the difference. And it's just incredible. Like just having someone that I can talk to very openly about everything that is going on, that is so useful and it's incredible, like the impact it has on everything that I'm doing in my business and my life. But it's just like a psychotherapist needs to have his own psychotherapist. It's normal for coaches to have coaches too. I love that.
Absolutely. It's a misconception too where people think, oh, must know all the things. You must have it all figured out. Of course not. I try to self coach. Maybe I know a little bit more than somebody who's not a coach, but I still need somebody outside of myself. I still have a coach. I've had a coach for years. And shout out to Kelly because she's incredible. And I talk to her every week. But it is having that other person who can peek in and who knows you and who learns you and who can be able to know what your patterns are and your habits, who knows your strengths, who knows where they can push you, who knows how to show up for you, who can help you do things that you think maybe are impossible or you think are too hard. When you typically walk away from coaching conversations, as I'm sure you've experienced, feeling in a way exhausted because you've stretched your brain beyond what you thought was there, excited because you see possibility, challenged because somebody has asked you things that you've never asked yourself, and you start to see doors open when you thought doors were shut. And to walk away from conversations like that is so empowering, especially as a mom, especially when you're constantly giving everything to everybody else for much of the day, to be able to look inward and say, I have more. There's more for me. And to allow somebody to be on that journey with you and to help you through it, it is literally life changing. And I don't know that people always realize just try it. And if you don't like it, that's okay, but
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah, completely. And so when it comes to the mindset, that's one of the big things that you help your clients with. Like, what do you do when there's a lot of uncertainty and that people are like, oh, yes, I would like to, but I'm not sure. Like, what's your technique with that?
That's everybody. It's very human to do that. So there's a lot of different tools and techniques that I use. And to a point that you said earlier, it depends on the person. Everybody's needs are very different. And the way that I coach them is very different. But there are some themes that we see across all people. So I'll share with you something that I do with pretty much every client. And that is the concept of working on the inner critic. And the inner critic is that little voice that we all have in our heads that says to you, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not likable enough. You're not tenured enough. You're not an expert enough. It's constant. And we all have different versions of the inner critic in our head. That is typically one of the biggest obstacles that holds us back from doing what we want and getting what we want, is because we listen to that voice as if it's the
Mhm.
truth. Now, that little voice is important because it's been there our whole lives. It has kept us safe many times. It has kept us protected, and it has kept us playing small. And so to start to recognize that little inner voice and what it's saying and how we can start to quiet it so that we can do the things we want to do, that takes a lot of work.
Mhm.
And so I spend many sessions with my clients unwinding that concept. And it's funny because a lot of people come in and they say, I don't have that. And then sure enough, they have multiple voices that they're hearing that are the ones, as I say it, driving the car, when really, like, you wanna be the one driving the car. You don't want that little voice to be the one driving the
Yeah.
car. And so how do you start to learn to quiet it so that you can take back the power and do the things that you wanna do? And I still struggle with it too. I'm
Mhm.
human. But because of the practice of it and the constant awareness of it, it allows us to start to take action in a way that we're not used to doing because we learn how to tell it to be quiet much quicker. And so we can move faster much quicker. But it comes with a lot of practice.
Yeah, but once we're aware of the way that we set up like our spikes and that we slow ourselves down, then once we have that consciousness, we can act on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I tell people all the time, the first piece is the awareness, the consciousness, as you said. It's, oh, that's there. Now I know and I can
Yeah.
identify it. So once I'm aware of it, then there's another sort of step, which is becoming accepting of it. There's a lot of acceptance we have to have. We have a lot of heavy judgment of ourselves, of others. And when we have heavy judgment, that's something else that gets in our way and can keep us playing small. And so it's starting with the awareness. It's then starting to accept what is, accepting, okay, maybe we're not the best at that thing. Okay. Maybe it's accepting this is hard. Okay.
Hmm.
It's becoming okay with it. It doesn't mean that it gets easier or that we're pretending that it's something it's not. It's just accepting what
Yeah.
is. And when we have taken those first two steps, then it's easier to move into action. That's where the action piece happens. And then when action happens, then you start to see momentum pick up.
Hmm.
And momentum is fun because it's almost like a runaway train in a good way where you're like, wow, there's all this stuff I can do. And like, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? And when that happens, it's like this amazing thing to just watch and to see what you're capable of that you just never saw. And all of a sudden, the world is your oyster
Hmm.
and you see so much more for yourself than you saw earlier in that process. But it has to happen in that order. And that's where having somebody by your side can
Yeah.
be very helpful to help take you through that.
Yeah. I see also how it can be dangerous because it can become a roller coaster of we doubt ourselves and then suddenly something unlocks and we're like, oh yeah, it's working. I'm going to get this. And you get the momentum and you're like on that high. And then something doesn't work the way it was supposed to. And you just crash. And it's, again, the inner critic, the self doubt until you're able to get back up. And I feel like when you're working with a coach or you're part of a mastermind that can support and cheer you on, then you're able to like even out the lows and the highs. And I would say it's still important to like enjoy the highs, but be mindful that it's a high so that you're managing to find a constant balance between effort and rewards. In a way, I feel like you have to find that good middle where you're able to like turn off the critics, enjoy the good moments, but always be able to know like what's coming and accept the fact that it's going to be a roller coaster, but you have to know how to manage that with your own emotions. Hey, Boss Mama, if you're ready to level up your business, I've got something exciting for you. I'm hosting the ultimate free workshop series for mom entrepreneurs. 3 expert led sessions designed to help you build, protect, and automate your business like a pro. Join us for the live sessions or access the replays. So, no excuses. Use the link in the show description to sign up, and let's make your business work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're describing is anytime we do something new, I think that roller coaster is part of it. I know people early on when I started my business would say, how's it going? And I would describe it just like that. It's a roller coaster. And I do think it's important to start to find that middle ground. And to your point, the awareness of what are the highs and being prepared that there's going to be lows on the other side too. That is part of how we even it out is the preparation and the acknowledgement that's what it's going to look like. Now, at the same time, the lows, I always look at them as learning opportunities. It's people have asked me, what do you think about failure? I don't really believe in that. I really believe that anything that doesn't go the way that we anticipate is a learning opportunity. It's simply information for us to just start to gather what's there for us rather than something that's terrible. So, being able to recognize that is part of the cycle and that's part of the experience and the journey, I think is the first step. It's knowing that's just natural and that's normal. And then the other piece of it is, I think it's really easy to get into a negative space when something doesn't go the way that we think it's going to go, or when we're disappointed by the outcome of it.
Mhm.
And so I like to think about this idea that there really are no mistakes, there are no failures. Everything is a learning opportunity. And so for me, when something doesn't go the way that I anticipate it's going to go, or I'm disappointed in the outcome, I look at it as data. If I can take the emotion out of it and simply say, okay, what am I learning here so that I can pivot and change it the next time? It removes some of the weight and the pressure of it. And the truth is, the only person that's really putting weight and pressure on the expectation is me. And so if I can recognize that's the case, then I'm able to say, what am I going to learn and how can I tweak and change? And again, I think it's a practice. It's not like poof, you just like quickly imagine that and then it is and now it's easy. But through practice, that has become very much one of my mantras is just try it again. Try it
Mhm.
again because I know that there's something there. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe that there was a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just you got to try a couple times and you got to be willing to learn and then try again and learn and try again until it becomes what it is that you want it to be. But I think if we can remove the emotional pressure from that journey, it can become fun rather than this very stressful experience.
Yeah, definitely. And over the years, like I tried a few different businesses and things. And every time that I've put the pressure, it always came from within. And I would make myself crazy being like, "Oh, but it's not as good as it should be. It's not as perfect as it should be." And I should actually take the time to reflect like, "Am I doing it again?" But it was never coming from other people. People were cheering me on. And I was the one creating that internal bubbling of it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And it goes back to the inner critic, right?
100%, and you said it perfectly. That's exactly what I was thinking, right? You did 2 things, right? 1, you recognize this is my pattern, and so here I am doing it again.
Mhm.
Am I gonna let myself do this again? And 2, that's my inner critic. Okay, so let me turn that down a little bit so that I can keep focus on the thing that I want. And I think part of it too is recognizing maybe this isn't working, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Right? Sometimes we have to say it's time to throw in the towel. This is not what I want it to be. This isn't what I was envisioning. I'm going to put that on a shelf. I'm going to step back and reflect on what do I want? Do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to try something new? Do I want to pivot? But every part of it is a learning. It's all a
Yeah.
learning experience. But it's to your point, it's like exactly when we start to say, oh, I'm not doing it. Here I go again. I'm not good enough for this. It's normal to do that. And you even said earlier, being surrounded by people, others who are doing something similar or in a similar boat can normalize it for us sometimes and can normalize those highs and those lows. And I think that's important too, because you're going to be hard enough on yourself. It's like you need people around you that are going to say, yep, I've been there too. Keep going. You've got it. We support you. We're here for you. We see you. How can we help?
Yeah.
That's an important part of that puzzle as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things also that just layers on top of the entrepreneurial experience is the motherhood piece. I find now that I have to be much more understanding with myself and really rethink my expectations because things are not going to happen as quickly that they would normally. And also just like being tired. Like today when we got on the call together, I was like, I'm sorry. I feel like some details are going to like escape my mind because I'm just exhausted. My son woke up a few times during the night and like I wouldn't mind being in bed right now. I'll be transparent about it. But I'm also really happy to be here and have those conversations. And it's like, how do I juggle my own emotions in a way where I'm able to do everything? And that means I have to be a lot more lenient with my expectations for myself, and it's gonna get messy.
Taken me a really long time to figure out what it is that you're talking about. That willingness to just say, this is going to be a messy moment. And today is going to be a little bit harder than it was yesterday because my kid was up all night. I think the first part is just, again, awareness of this is the season of life that we're in. When you're a mom, you're juggling a lot of things. And just when you think you figured it out, then it evolves because your kid has evolved. And then you figure it out again, and then they change again, and you have to pivot. And so I think recognizing like this is a season of life, it's not always going to be this way. There is beauty in it. It is messy. It is hard. It is stressful. It is wonderful. There's all kinds of things that happen during this time. It's just saying to myself, today is not going to be as productive as I thought it was going to be. And I have to remind myself that there is productivity in rest. There is productivity in stepping back. There's productivity in taking a moment or taking a nap. And it's really hard when that's not how our society and our culture defines that concept. And I'll tell you, especially on my entrepreneurial journey, when I don't have the deadline of somebody else, it's even harder because I have to hold myself accountable for what I want. And it's in the moments when I'm tired because I was up with a sick kid during the night, or when I'm stressed because there's something going on in my children's lives that's stressing me out, where I have to give myself the grace to say, today's going to look a little different than what I thought. And that is okay. The only timeline that I am running against is my own, and it's made up. I think we sometimes imagine that there's like this timeline of life and we have to have certain things done by a certain time, and it's not real. And so to recognize that things will happen in the time that they're meant to happen, which might not look the way that our brains think it's going to look, that acceptance can go a really long way. Myself, and what's interesting now is it is when I step back, it is when I slow down, it is when I rest that I have some of my most genius thinking and my most genius ideas. And it's not when I'm consciously thinking, it's like a subconscious thing that happens. It's like people say they have great ideas in the shower. I do too. It's like you're not even thinking or focus. You're just cleaning yourself. You're just singing along to the songs in your head And all of a sudden, this genius idea comes up because you finally relaxed. So there is so much productivity in that. And if I could impart like one thing to anybody listening, it is to know that is true and just try to allow it and know that productivity looks a little different from how everybody typically defines it.
And sometimes things just don't go according to plan because we realize we need that moment for something else. Last Sunday, I was supposed to have the day for myself to work and skip on a birthday party and things like that for kids. And I was like, that's fine. There'll be tons of them. He's only one, anyways, right? And then my partner was like, you sure you don't want to come? And I was like, I'm actually so sleepy right now. I don't think I'm going to be productive at all. And I did enjoy the party because I was too tired. But I still enjoyed being with my kid and my partner, and that was the fun part, right? I got home and I ended up working until 11 p.m. and I had that thing of the deadline. And so then I was productive. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great description because it really shows how we think it's supposed to look a certain
Yeah.
way. And then the day gets thrown on its head. And then we pivot and we adjust and we can. Moms are the most powerful, incredible creatures on this earth. The amount of things that we can juggle and get done
Hmm.
is unbelievable. And I think we often underestimate that. And I have said to many clients, look, the fact that you got out of bed and took a shower today is incredible. Celebrate that. If that is all that you did, it is a great day. You will have a different day tomorrow. And it's like we always compare ourselves to the best 100% all on version of ourselves. And we forget some days we only have about 10% to give. And if we only have 10% to give and we give 10%, we're giving 100% of that day.
Hmm.
And that's enough.
I like
And
that.
we have to remind ourselves, I think, of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that because it's definitely something I'm going to apply to be sure. And when I'm looking at my day, just feeling myself for like, how much do I have in me today? And it's going to be like, oh, I only have 10%, but I'm going to give that 10%. And that's going to be 100% today.
Exactly. Because you can't give more than what you don't have. And anything after that is going to be diminishing returns.
Yeah.
So if you can recognize this is all I have and I'm going to give it, great, done. It was a great day.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I want to explore with you also is when it comes to meaning and fulfillment in our work, because I know this is something that you help your clients with. And I feel like a lot of people go towards entrepreneurship thinking that these elements are going to be easy. Because when we go into entrepreneurship, it's either because we already have a passion that we want to turn into our full time job kind of thing, or we think that because it's going to be on our terms, that it's going to be fulfilling. But it's not necessarily that simple, is it?
It's not. And I see people across the board and probably about maybe half my clients are entrepreneurs. I think that sometimes we think that if we turn our passion into our job, that everything is going to be easy. You basically just said that. But oftentimes what happens is once we turn the passion into a job, the thinking around it shifts
Mhm.
and the passion is no longer fun. And the fun of it was not having to put pressure on it. And so I think it's important to examine how much are you willing to work for the passion? Because you have to be prepared to know that it's going to shift and it's going to change the way that you see it.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of people that I work with, especially ones that are making some kind of leap from one thing to another, even if it's one role to another role, I always like for them to sort of dip their toe in first rather than jump completely. Dip your toe in and see what is it like to start to think about this thing that you love a little bit differently. What is it like when you start to put some pressure on it?
Mhm.
Do you like how that feels? I'll give you an example in my own business. And a lot of coaches that I work with and friends of mine who are coaches end up a little bit disappointed in the coaching business because they realize that coaching is a very small part of their day. A lot of their day is the business. And that happens, I think, with anybody who is pursuing a passion is you have to realize the passion is part of your day, but it is not all of your
Mhm.
day. There's the other pieces, which is like, how am I going to get the word out? How am I going to tell people what's going on? How am I going to handle the financials? How am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to do about all the IT needs that I have? What about the financial pieces? What about, right? There's nonstop stuff that has to happen. And so you have to prepare that that's going to be the case. Now, For me, I'm combining a lot of passions. Not only do I love coaching, I love business. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, there's a passion in both and there's an enjoyment in both. But I think it's really the preparation and knowing that's going to be the case, because it's not always as easy as like snap my fingers, one, two, three. I just do the thing
Yeah.
that I love and poof, now I've created this business and this job for myself. There's a lot of other things that have to go into it. And I think there's also some recognition that at some point you can start to hand off the stuff that you're not good at or that you don't like. And so you can really focus on the thing that you want to focus on. But that doesn't come immediately. That
Mm-hmm.
typically comes over some time and some proof of concept.
I think a lot of people, when they get into business, they think, oh, it's okay, I'm going to outsource all the things that I don't like. But unless you have already a big budget that you're able to just burn through with these kind of things, you need to have the money making machine working first. And even just knowing what is your standard of how you want things done, right? And I'm actually going through this right now because I hired an editor for the podcast, and I didn't really give him that many instructions because I thought he knows what he's doing, right? Except he didn't at all because he didn't know what I wanted. And so the experience was just terrible. And I thought, oh, it's going to be so much easier once I outsource. No, it turns out I'm going to learn how to do it myself first. And then I'm going to find someone who can do it for me. And I'll know exactly what it is I want. But it also means I need to be generating some money for that, because if I want a certain level of work, a certain quality, that also requires a budget. And so there's a whole like managing my expectations about how things are going to get done. But it's also just like understanding that there's going to be some adjustments over time. Not everything is going to be perfect from the beginning. And that's going to be that journey. And again, I'm going to learn through it.
The first time I had a babysitter come to our house to take care of my daughter when she was little, before I had my son, we gave the babysitter every single detail. Here is how you have to hold her when you feed her. Here's how she likes her diapers changed. Here's where the lights have to be when she goes to sleep. Here's the order of the songs that you sing. Here's how you sing them. Here's what you have to say before bed. It was a never ending, ridiculous list of what we needed because we knew exactly what would make her
Yeah.
happy. I think sometimes we think of our business as our babies, and I do too. This is, I joke, my third baby. So when I hand it to somebody,
Hmm.
I have to know that I have to hand it to them with the same level of detail and expectations that I had with my kids.
Yeah.
And I have similarly learned where I'm like, oh, you do this thing, so you'll know what to do. And then it's not what I expect because I didn't give them any instructions about my expectations of how I wanted my baby handled. And so now when I hire somebody to do something for me, I treat it the same way I treated my babies when I had babysitters come over. Here is everything that I expect. Here's what I'm looking for. Now,
Hmm.
of course, it's not going to be exactly like that, right? I have to be realistic too,
Yeah.
but I want them to treat it with the same love and care that I have as I have birthed this
Yeah.
business, right? I have poured blood, sweat, and tears into it. I want somebody else to treat it with the same TLC that I do and take care of it the same way. And I think as women in particular, we don't want to seem like we're asking too much.
Hmm.
We don't want to
Sure.
seem overly assertive. We don't want to be unlikable, of course, right? All these things that we have in our head, and it prevents us from asking for what we need. And then we're having to deal with a product that we
Yeah.
don't like, or we're having to ask somebody to do something again. So I would maybe just have anybody who's listening think of it like your baby. This is your baby. So what would you say to somebody who's coming over to take care of your child? Handle your business the same way. Here are the things that I want. Here's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Here's what it needs. And that's hopefully a good starting point.
So basically, when you had your first babysitter, you handed her a standard operating procedure list.
Exactly. Here's the SOP for
Yeah.
my child.
It's something that I'm trying to ready to think about when I'm doing certain tasks. I'm actually taking out an Excel sheet and I'm like, okay, standard operating procedure for this and that. And I'm doing it right now with my emails and things like this. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense for me now. Also because I'm on mom brain and sometimes I forget how I've done something. When I'll be ready to hand out certain aspects of the business, then I'll already have those sheets ready. And having the SOPs is just going to make so much sense when that happens.
Absolutely. And you know what I think you'll find too is when you find somebody who's going to partner with you on whatever task it is that you're outsourcing, the best ones are going to say, I've got it. I see your SOPs. Have you ever considered
Yeah.
trying this?
Yeah.
And then they even up your game from what you thought was the best. And I've had babysitters do the same where they say, I know you did this with her, but have you tried this? And you're like, oh my gosh, what a great idea. Thank you. Right. That is the best kind of partnership.
And so, can you give us a little bit more context around the coaching that you do and examples of parent entrepreneurs that needed a little bit of coaching, how you managed to get them through their misbeliefs or self criticism?
Absolutely. So I typically coach parents who are in leadership roles. And so the people that come to me are often experiencing burnout. They are trying to find balance. They are trying to get to whatever is next. Many of them are looking to make a leap out of something that they've been doing for a long time into something that's more entrepreneurial. Or some of them are already entrepreneurs and they're trying to up their game. So I'll give you a couple examples. I have a client who runs a business. I actually have a couple in this boat. They run a business, all moms, and they are opening other franchises or other parts of their business or other locations of their business. And so they've figured out how to do it in one place. And now they're figuring out, how do I expand into others? And how do I do that in a way that doesn't mean that I'm having to give more time, more energy? How do I take what I've figured out and just replicate it or duplicate it and hand it off to somebody else who can be able to take it and live out the dreams that I have
Yeah.
for it? That seems easy when you talk about it, but at the end of the day, it really does mean that somebody has to basically start from scratch again in many ways. And the idea of that feels heavy for people. It feels like a lot to have to go through all those beginning steps that they've already put behind them and do it again. But what people forget is that because they've done it once, even with mom brain, which we all
Mhm.
have, you're able to do it quicker and better in many ways. And you learn how to partner, and you've already learned and grown from the mistakes. And so it's starting to shift your mindset into what's possible when I can get through these initial stages. And these initial stages won't feel the same as they felt the first time, they're going to feel different. Maybe they see new dreams for their business or they see different avenues they want to pursue, but life is getting in the way. They've got kids, they've got family, they've got other needs. And so they find that rather than maybe doing something that will up their game, they're choosing to do laundry because it's easier.
Mhm.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of being intentional with where you're putting your
Yeah.
time. So, one of the concepts that I teach most of my clients, we sort of touched on this earlier, but it's the concept of conscious choice. And so I take them through what's called the 7 levels of energy. They actually take an assessment and they understand from that assessment when they're at their best, what is happening for them in terms of their motivation, their confidence, their energy, their engagement with what they're doing. And how do they continue to tap into that, into those things, so that they're able to grow in the way that they want to grow, recognizing that stressors are common, they are normal, and they're going to hit their stressors. And so it's really understanding, okay, when I'm in a moment of stress, when things feel hard, what is my typical habit and my pattern?
Mhm.
And how can I then, knowing that, move to a place of conscious choice? And when we become intentional about what we're doing with our time and with our choices, all of a sudden we feel more fulfilled because we're doing things from a place of intention rather than from a place of habit. And as humans, we easily fall into habit. And so a lot of what I do with my clients, especially my moms who are entrepreneurs, is really start to understand that piece, because when they understand that and they understand themselves and their habits, it's almost like they can catch themselves in it. And they can start to say, oh, there I go again. I'm doing the thing I do. I always go to laundry when something feels hard. I'm going to not do the laundry right now. I'm going to make myself work on this thing for 10 minutes and then I can do the laundry. It's just like little tiny bite-sized shifts that we start to make. And then we look back and we say, oh, that wasn't so hard. I
Yeah.
can do that again tomorrow, or I can do it for a little longer. Or wow, look at what I could do. Now I feel momentum. I don't want to stop. Laundry can wait. I'm going to do this other thing. And it's just through that process of trial and error and being willing to play and being so aware and so intentional that we're able to start to see what we're made of. But without that, what do? We fall back on our habits and our patterns because that's what our brain does.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. And I just find it incredible how in being intentional is crucial because I see so many moms like personally, I do marketing coaching, right? So I see a lot of moms who are like, oh, I've started my business and I'm on Instagram and I'm chatting on some groups and things like that. I'm like, yeah, but what's your strategy behind it? Are you intentional with the time you're spending on that marketing? Because they're like, I'm not getting any results. Well, yeah, because you're just shooting in the dark. You don't have a strategy. You're not being thought out with what you're trying to achieve because all those efforts, they have to go somewhere. They have to lead always towards that same goal. And so having the time to really think about it and being intentional, that is crucial.
Absolutely. And I say the same thing to clients. Clients will show up for a coaching session and they have these powerful breakthroughs and these aha moments and these, oh my gosh, like now I see. But I say to them, just simply showing up for the session and then going back to what you've always done
Yeah.
isn't really going to get you very far. It's when you take what you've learned, and that means you're taking notes in the session and you're processing what we're talking about and you're actively engaging. And then you're holding yourself to what you say you're going to do. And my clients always leave a session similar to yours, where it's like, where are you going? They always leave a session with, here's what I'm going to work on
Yeah.
practicing now, between now and when I see you again. Because if there's no practice, you're not going to get better. It's no different than playing sports or playing an instrument or anything else that you do where you want to improve. You have to practice the thing,
Hmm.
because if you're not doing that and you're simply just thinking on it, it doesn't allow you to actually get where you want to go.
Yeah.
And so I think it is that intentional willingness to say, I'm going to choose to do this thing that maybe feels hard or feels different or feels new. And of course it does, because you've never done it before, but I'm going to put energy and effort behind it. And I'm willing to do that because I want to see change. I want to see growth.
Yeah, completely. I have one last question for you. One day when they're all grown up, what do you wish your kids would say about you?
Oh, I love that question. I love that question. Um, oh, that's a really good one. I hope that they would say that I was a model for them of what life can be and how fulfilling it can be, and that I showed them that they can do anything that they want to do, even though it might seem hard, and that mom was brave and she leapt. She took this crazy big jump out of something that seemed very stable and did it when they were little, and that they watched me do it, and they watched the ups and the downs and the trials and the tribulations and the celebrations, and that because of that modeling that they can do the same thing for themselves.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. I love that answer.
The question.
I'm asking this at the end of each interview, but every time I get goosebumps.
Beautiful question, right? Because I think so many of us, as we are on these journeys, I think it's impossible to not have
Mhm.
those little people in the back of our minds as we make every decision, everything we do. I
Yeah.
always tell my kids, even when you don't like it, everything I do is for you. And so I think that's part of our journey
Mm.
doing this, right? Is it has an impact on our kids. And I think we
Yeah.
recognize that.
Yeah. And I think there's also a big difference here between moms and dads when we go into our own businesses. And maybe it's a stereotype I have, but I feel like moms, we're doing it so that we have more freedom to also be with our kids and be more present with them. And I feel like dads, they might do it more in terms of like ego and one day I want to have a legacy. But I feel like moms, it's more like in the present. I want to have more time now. I want to be a role model now. And so, yeah, different approaches.
I couldn't agree more. And I found that even in my leap, that was so much of my reason was, and it wasn't even that I have more time with them, but it was more that I'm present when I'm with them, that time
Yeah.
is quality time with them. I remember one of the first days after I had resigned, I picked my kids up from daycare. We were driving home and I had looked in the sky and I saw clouds, and one of them looked like it was in the shape of Mickey. We were going to Disney World like shortly thereafter. And I said, "You guys, look at the sky. Do you looks like a Mickey Mouse cloud?" And my daughter said, "Mommy, you've never noticed the clouds before." And it was like I had picked them up a million times before, but I was always thinking about the meeting I had to go to or the
Yeah.
meeting I just came from or what I needed to do that night. I was present in a different way, so the time was more meaningful. I think
Yeah.
that's been the biggest shift for me, and I think a lot of people see that too.
Yeah, that's incredible. Shayna, where can everyone know more about you, connect with you?
So you can go to my website, which is shaynabergman.com. You can also find me on all the socials, which is at Shayna Bergman Coaching. And please connect with me. I always put out little tidbits and fun things and what's going on in my life and what I'm working on. I offer a free download, which is 5 ways to cure your imposter syndrome. It's on my website. And it is something that we all have, as much as we don't want to admit it. We all have imposter syndrome, especially as we're trying new things. And so I recommend getting that guide, and that will automatically get you onto my email list.
Thank you, Shayna. It was a lovely conversation. I had a really good time, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
fun.
Whoa, what a powerful conversation with Shayna. I hope you're walking away with fresh clarity on how mindset, courage, and intentional action are the real superpowers behind launching and sustaining your dream business as a mompreneur. Remember, it's normal to feel pulled between the business you're building and the family you're raising, but you don't have to navigate that tension alone. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start moving forward with more confidence and ease, here's what to do next. First, check out Shayna's free resource, 5 Ways to Cure Your Imposter Syndrome. It's linked in the show notes, and trust me, every single one of us has battled that inner critic. Second, come join us inside the Hey Boss Mama Facebook group, where you'll find other ambitious moms just like you, cheering each other on, sharing real talk, and supporting one another through the ups and downs. And as always, if this episode gave you even one aha moment, I'd love for you to share it with another boss mama who might need this today. Your shares help us grow this community of empowered moms, and for that, I'm so grateful. Until next time, boss mama, you've got this.